Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John, and this is episode 202. It's been fun. I'm still over here in Twickenham, London. By the time you hear this, of course, I'll be home back in the States. But I just want to say a shout out to all my students, both past and present, not only here at St. Mary's, but at all the schools I've ever taught. Had a wonderful chance to meet with one of my former athletes who's now a videographer here in London, and I am proud of my former athletes. So many of them are professors, and so many of them are doctors and lawyers, and very successful in so many different parts of life. I'm working with one of my athletes' sons right now, who's a javelin thrower and getting to be pretty good. And it's that kind of thing that, kind of gets you up out in the morning and keeps you going. So a shout out to all my former athletes. I had a conversation this morning I just want to talk about for just a few seconds. If you have questions, please send us an email to podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I do my best to answer each and every question. It is nice to see us getting more and more questions, and I'm still trying to do my best just to answer the questions back as appropriate. If it's really personal, or over there on the forum at danjohnuniversity.com. Talking to my students today, it's a conversation that's come up before. There's a couple things about being a young coach, and really the biggest issues that is really, it sounds weird, but we sometimes try too hard. We get a little too technical. I was telling the students about the system I use for teaching the discus, and I have three, and I'll only share two of them. One is the one that's most famous: stretch, 1, 2, 3. I just summarized the whole throw. We also use the word spanky and the word stretch, and with that, I can teach you as far as you ever want to go. I have another method where I use different words. I use words like gate, rotate up, and a few other phrases, and that helps some students that when they need a little bit more of a word association. I have a third method, and frankly, I don't remember it as well because I don't use it very often, but I use much more dynamic phrases. Obviously, rotate up is a phrase, but tornado is kind of a better way to explain a spin than, 2, 3 to some people. So one of the things I try to teach them is to simplify their coaching terms. I've said many times about Coach DeYoung's offense we ran in high school. If I say right 123 dive, I can tell you what all 11 people do. I can tell you what the count is going to be. I can tell you where every single person on the field is going to be. And I can tell you basically what everyone's job was. That's kind of interesting, I know. But what happens sometimes is that we use too many words and we confuse people. That's the way you put together a system. And of course, coaching cues, which only have really three. A cue is the kind of term you use when someone's doing the movement. And really I only have three: stay tall, squeeze, and go, go, go. Doesn't sound like much, but basically you need to say something sometimes, and go, go, go is as good a phrase as practically anything else you want. We're discussing how you teach an athlete, to realize that there's always more options. Back when I was a younger coach, I was the chess moderator at the school I was at. And I used to use chess as a game what's great about chess, if I make a mistake, a blunder early in the game, and you take my queen or my bishop or something like that, the game ain't over. There's a good chance that by you chasing my queen, I might have opened up a whole bunch of different attacks. So it teaches you not only to think ahead, but also to remind you that you always have options. Chess can be a complex game, so I've used checkers, which is good for games that are also, pretty much horizontal. There's another game, though, called Connect 4. It's the game where you drop the little things down the slots, and there's blue ones and red ones or yellow, whatever the colors. And when you get 4 in a row in any direction, you win. The thing I like about 4 in a row for not only my athletes and my coaching and teaching my coaches is that every time the little, the red or blue or whatever disc drops, the game changes. And I think that's a good way to teach. So, I mean, obviously, I am older than, certainly, I mean, I'm much older than the coaches that coach now, obviously much older than the athletes that are coaching. But something as simple as trying to use games like that to teach multiple options and how the game can change from moment to moment. Not only is that a skill for sports and athletics, but it's a life skill. So I just want to share that with you before we start the episode, because it's fresh in my head, and here we go. So let's answer some questions. I've got a question from Noah. Noah, I've been playing around overcoming isometrics and captains of crush gripper training lately. Even more than grip and movement specific strength, I found feeling a good increase in how much I'm able to squeeze my abs and glutes. For training ab strength, would I be missing anything removing a more dynamic component to ab flexion and just focus on standing trunk extension using isometrics instead? You know, it's nice you said that, Noah, because this is one of those times where this is exactly what I taught my students in the last thing. If you go to our YouTube channel here, I think I talk about something called vertical planks a lot. Really simply, now you don't need a stretchy band, but you hang a stretchy band, a Dynamax stretch band from the ceiling or pull-up bar or whatever, and you stand there in the top of that kettlebell top position and you pull down. What we also do with my students, since we're working together, we put hands underneath that for the pressure. But an interesting thing is to put the hands on the outside, or have the band pulling this way, or have the band pulling that way. And so you stick the band to an appropriate, probably about xiphoid process, sternum height on the wall. You take the band, you pull it across, and then you fight the band to stay that your hands are in that locked out place. I always ask my students here, what muscles that build? And they're always like, I got no idea. I got to tell you, I love using isometric to train the ab wall. Remember, the suitcase carry, which is probably my favorite go-to exercise for throwers, kickers, strikers, is basically a moving plank. It's every step you take, every move you make, I'll be watching you, is a chance to re-lock down and find muscles to stop you from pulling away from or leaning into the side that has the load. So yeah, I like this a lot. I'm going to tell you something interesting, and it's a bit more, it doesn't answer your question completely, but one of the shocking things about doing farmer walks and suitcase carries, and we picked this up when I was working with the Major League Baseball team, is that it seems to help American baseball pitchers' throwing arms. Now, how does walking with the weight down at your side, gripping a dumbbell or kettlebell, a loaded one, help your throwing strength? Well, that's not for me to figure out. My job is to figure out ways to increase the speed of the fastball. It's somebody else's job to figure out why that happens. But I think there's this bizarre relationship between grip and throwing speed. Hanging from bars, suitcase carries, and boy, I haven't really done much of it, but working with the grippers might really help throwing speed. Back in the early 60s, baseball players never really lifted weights. In fact, my whole career, from what I've seen, they still don't understand everything, but when I was young, baseball players focused on grip strength, and I think they intuitively got something right, and it's nice to see them kind of coming full circle back to it. Sadly, when certain drugs began to overrun professional baseball, you'll notice that when they did lift weights, it was all curls, triceps. It was low-level bodybuilding. They never worked their legs. Nolan Ryan did. But most baseball players ignored their lower bodies. If you can get a good lower body program for your baseball players, whatever sport you're going to do, and work on the suitcase carries and the hangs and a few other things, I think you're going to see some improvements in your pitching speed. Just a segue, but I thought it tied in well. So thank you very much. Good question. Michael asks, you talked about lifting standards for your younger athletes, such as a double body weight deadlift. The thing I like about a double body weight deadlift, for most the men I work with, is it's reasonable and achievable, and there's two good routes to get to it. Route number one is getting stronger. Route number two is, leaning out. And if you do both, it's easier to achieve. I pulled a double body weight deadlift at a conference a couple of months ago. There was a little thing there with a barbell loaded at 200K. And if you deadlifted it, you got a voucher for something. I didn't take the voucher. And I walked over in my jacket and my tie and pulled it without a problem. Okay, that's one of those how wonderful am I stories. I get that. Having said that, I think you can, if you get strong in your teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, it holds on for a long time. Let's move on to your question. Have you ever talked about standards for those of us in the 65 plus age group? That includes me. So yes, assuming that one's been training for a while and has no major limitations, what should we aim for? Well, let's do this. I still like the idea of being able to pick up double body weight. I like the idea of being able to pick up double body weight with a hex bar or trap bar, whatever we're calling it, a Girard bar this week, and taking a few steps with it, because I think that's more important for the adult than anything. Peter Attia has a new book out where he has his elderly decathlon or something. But I have a book called Can You Go, where I go through this pretty clearly. Before we get to the double body weight deadlift, let's make the simple ones, okay? You should be able to stand on your foot for 10 seconds. Your waistline should be half your height or less. And I always joke, I should be taller. You should be able to get up and down off the floor without a whole bunch of, be nice if you just put one hand on the floor and pop up. It would be nice if you can get up and down off the floor multiple times, back to back to back to back. I like to see a standing long jump. That is at least, the standing long jump is at least your body height. And then, of course, I do like the idea of being able to carry your body weight for a distance. I'm going to make up a number because I don't think it matters at all. Earlier I said double body weight. This time I'm saying body weight. It'd be nice to be able to pick up your body weight and carry it for a distance. Let's say 100 yards, 100 meters, 100 yards, it doesn't matter. But be able to keep checking in on that. I just summarized Can You Go? Part of it anyway. When it comes to things like deadlift, I would like to see you be able to still do press-ups or push-ups, later in your life. You don't have to be crazy on it. Let's just go minimal, okay? Let's just say 10 to 25, and your mileage may vary. I think it's important to be able to hang for 30 seconds, straight arm. I certainly think it'd be nice to be able to do one pull-up, and then from there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way up. I think it gets better and better and better long term. I'd like to be able to see you do a goblet squat. Let's just throw a number out, 20 kilos, and be able to do a 5 to 10. Again, this is vague because, there's all kinds of issues. Being able to deadlift body weight as long as you can. I think my goals of being able to snatch and clean and press body weight. And I've decided this year I want to get back to being able to clean and press my body weight again. Again, there's two options. I can lose weight or I can just get stronger. Loaded carries, I think you should be able to carry your body weight for that, whatever that thing we invented. Nothing I said there is perfect, exact, or whatever. I'd like to see you write down a push, a pull, a hinge, a squat, a loaded carry. Maybe even include put those here, and then include how long you stand on one foot, left and right, And also include closing your eyes test. Interesting, when I close my eyes, my abilities just drop off. I would like to see you do the Brazilian get up and down test, or just do what I call the get back up test. You can find it here on YouTube. It would be nice to see you standing long jump your body height for as long as you can. So maybe those basic tests here, obviously blood tests too. And then over here, pick a push, a pull, a hinge, a squat. And the squat can simply be being able to do one. And the loaded carry can be, a nice tester also. Just write a few numbers down, maybe pre-test yourself, train for the test for 6 weeks. When I say train for the test, your program becomes, if you're gonna do what we call T push-ups, sometimes called hand release push-ups, and you decide you wanna do 25, when you test in a few days, after you listen to this, you go off and you do 15, 25 is a great goal. If you do 25, maybe make it another goal. Train those movements for 6 weeks, and then look at that, look at your before, look at your after, and then make an intelligent guess about how long you want to achieve those goals. For me, the longer you can achieve those goals, the better. And I hope you're thinking the same way too. Pretty good. That's a pretty good question, and I hope I did a good job with the answer. The issue, Michael, and other gentle listeners, is it's very difficult to have standards for really anybody over 35, because we don't really have yet enough information to say it's like when I first started working with women athletes, we simply didn't have enough numbers to be able to say this, and this. If you look at my big silver standards, that's for my high school female athletes, high school girl athletes. The clean is 95 pounds. And I've had people say, that's very light. And it's like, well, yeah, but that's after studying a bucket of 500 athletes that I came up with that number. 500 is a lot. And I feel comfortable with the numbers I give you. Maybe in 10 years, someone will say, Dan, 95 is woefully too low. Okay, good, thank you. And they'll have some more, a bigger population to study from, extract the information from, and we can move on. Frankly, back in the 50s and 60s, we did have a lot of people, older people lifting weights. And it was interesting, if you go back in Strength and Health, you'll see a number of articles on lifting for elderly people. Sadly, there's also articles about dealing with injured athletes and people wounded from wars in those. And what you'll notice is that the way we started training people in the late 70s, 80s, 90s, aughts, maybe in teens, we started training people like they were injured, the elderly like they were injured, rather than they were master athletes. That's just an asterisk. I hope that helped. Thank you. Got a question from Andy. Repeating the 30-second hang followed by a pull-up as outlined in your post-deployment program, that's a tough one, is a great way to stretch out the shoulder girdle and lats after a workout, as well as building grip strength. I imagine it also works the core too. Yeah, when you have to lock on, you have to go hang, lock on to do the pull-up. Yeah, it's very good. In fact, it seems to me to have very similar benefits to a loaded carry. What are your thoughts on this? If they're not that different, can they complement one another? Are they valid substitution for one another? Valid substitution. My thought is, why not do both? You gave me an either or question there. I'm not a big fan. So his point is, when I test people in the pull-up now, it's a 30-second hang followed by a pull-up, then a 30-second hang followed by pull-up number 2, a 30-second hang followed by pull-up number 3, a 30-second hang followed by pull-up number 4. As I noted in the earlier question on American baseball pitchers, there's something magical about the hang and the suitcase carrying farmer walk for people's shoulders. So I would say, if you can possibly do both, this is a very quick answer. The answer is absolutely yes. It's a great thing. When you say substituted, If there's a reason for substitution, I get it, and I'm in favor of it. And if it's just because, you know, I don't know what other reason there'd be, I would go to plan. Just do them both. All right, thank you. We got Mick. Mick is back with us again. 51-year-old wannabe master sprinter from the UK. I was listening to episode 192 today, where you talked about rep ranges and classified them as strength, 10 total reps, and power, like 15 to 25 or 15 to 30, 3 sets 8 and all that. The power numbers come from the work of Tom DeLorme, who was fixing wounded warriors in World War II, and that's where the DeLorme protocol comes from. And all I do is hats off to him, and I give him credit for that. The strength numbers, 10 total. This is just, I've heard this way too many times. If you are a typical strength athlete, not using performance enhancements, you probably only have about 10 big, heavy lifts in your workout. I mean, obviously, as always, your mileage may vary. You might be you might be, like I've had athletes whose wrists are the size of, their wrists equal, one of their wrists the size of 2 of mine. And they could handle a lot more volume on the heavy loads. But for the normal, genetically okay gifted person, not using any enhancements, 10's about right. So we'll move on. I've spent the last 9 months focusing on easy strength twice a week, 3x3 of push, pull, hinge, loaded carry, and a hang clean. Okay. But I'm wondering for sprinting whether I also need to spend more time focusing on power. I'm a follower of Barry Ross on this. And actually, Charlie Francis, the great Canadian sprint coach, my staff and I, and of course Lyle McDonald, we were people at the last workshop Charlie ever did, as I understand it. His vision of weight training was not that far from our beliefs. He like the way we coach sprinting, we thought a lot of good could happen in the weight room, but we also thought a lot of bad could happen in the weight room. I'm a fan of Barry Ross's protocols. Now I know he doesn't really talk much longer. Personally, I feel he got a short end of the stick with the number of athletes and, of course, members of the coaching fraternity, because he said something unique and different. Of course, if you always follow the crowd, you're not gonna, you're not gonna be immortal. I tell you that. But let's get on to your question. Or if I'm in the weight room twice a week, could one be easy strength and the other power rep ranges? I'd then run and recover the other days. Or do I just continue with easy strength, continue to get stronger, and let the hill sprints and actual sprinting be my power? Ooh, boy, see what's happening here? Mick, my good friend from the UK, you're getting yourself into a weird place. So there's a book by Pavel called Power to the People, and 5 days a week you deadlift and do a pressing movement. Barry Ross adapted that to his sprinters. I would argue, if you don't mind, to focus in the weight room on really building up to the strongest deadlift you possibly can. 3 sets of 3, by the way, is probably perfectly fine. I'm going to give you a program for you. 3 days a week, 3 sets of 3 in the deadlift, 3 sets of 3 in a press variation. Feel free to have lots of variation in the deadlifts and press, and probably go for 2 to 3 weeks before you do any variations. I would do the ab wheel if I were you, and the loaded carry would be suitcase carries. Maybe you want to throw in a hang in your warm-up and a goblet squat sitting at the bottom in your warm-ups. So goblet squat stretch in your warm-up, 30 seconds a minute. Hang from bar, 30 seconds a minute. 3 sets of 3 in a deadlift variation, 3 sets of 3 in a press variation, 1 set of 10 in the ab wheel. a hard out and back with the suitcase carry. If you're going to do hill sprints, I would keep them away from those three days of weightlifting. So if you lift Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, maybe your hill work could be on Sunday. Anytime you sprint from now on, Mick, we're talking about easy power, or easy sprinting. I'd like you to invest in one of those speed traps, okay? And it might, there's going to be a cost, and you're going to have an app, and you're going to have your phone and all that, but it'll be worth it. I want you to start doing your sprint work in speed traps. So you set up one here, and then you set up one at 20 meters away. I want you to, if it's 20 meters, it's called a flying 20. If it's 30 meters, it's called a flying 30. If it's 40 meters, it's a flying 40. And I want you to come into the speed trap. So I don't know how long, I don't want you to, on your mark, you get set, go, start there. I want you to take a long, when I say long, 20 to 30 meter build up, hit the speed trap, and then slow down over. And if it takes you 60, 70, 80, 90 meters to slow down to a stop, come back and check your time. Let's just make up some numbers. And we're just making up numbers, so don't worry about them. If you run a 5 on the first one and then a 4.9 on the second one, we're just making up numbers. Keep going. If you run a 4.8, you keep going. If you run a 4.7, good for you. And you just want to constantly figure out ways to make yourself go through that trap faster. If you have an opportunity to do it this way, where you do a flying, whatever, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then you could just do an easy walk around the track to recover, burst it, but always get feedback. Now, if you hit a 5.1, practice is over. Go home. Because it's the quality of sprinting that's important, not the quantity. In the weight room, you can't miss. Barry recommends a sumo deadlift where he drops the barbell at the top so that he doesn't want any soreness at all. I don't care what your press variation is, but that's just to supplement the deadlift work. That's an advanced program. It's what I recommend to sprinters. It's what I've had a few sprinters do, and it seems to work pretty well. I hope that work helps. And easy power, easy sprinting. That sounds fun. Thank you. Good question. Tony asks a question here. He asked about the strength training ideas of James Councilman, the long-term Indiana swim coach back in the 60s and 70s. Oh, yeah, I'm very familiar with his work. James really kept trying to think outside the box. If you ever go to a good swim team, and you see weird little machines where you lay down and you lift weights like that, pretty good chance that was James Councilman's work. James tried circuit training for swimmers. He tried just about everything he could to get swimmers to lift weights. He was constantly trying to find ways to simply improve swimming. And I'm not sure where he ever got to whatever absolute conclusions. It seemed to me as I read his work, and I have to be careful because I'm not very focused on swimming, so I would just look at it. So I don't know, sometimes when people's work, I didn't start at A and go to Z with his work. I'd pop in and out and just read interesting things he did. I still think swimmers, and what do I know, would be best served by doing a general overall training program. When I watch swimmers doing some of the silly things they do, when you see all those high rep ab things and stuff, folks, high rep ab work is rarely a good answer. I would much rather see my swim team train with wrestlers, get a little bit more intensity, a little bit more locked and loaded. But I'm a big fan of his work, a real pioneer, and in a lot of ways a real visionary. He kept trying to find machines, and I remember thinking one time, the guy's that I think it's Dr. Councilman, was trying to find ways to take his research and monetize it, which I completely understand. And I think he got a little caught into the magic machine side, at least for a while. But yes, I'm very aware, big fan, and well worth your time reading about. Thank you. We got a question from Wyatt. First off, he says, I love the Omnibook. So good for you. Thank you. Appreciate it. danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. My wife is volunteering full-time at a summer camp from June to August this year. She'll be in the boonies and away from our home gym. On top of that, we are hoping that she's pregnant. Too soon to find out. By the time this podcast comes out, you might know. I was wondering if you had any insight to how we should plan her routine this summer. My first thought was a simple loaded carry routine to help her prepare for loading around a baby. It's a summer camp, so she'll be walking and moving a lot with fresh air. So my daughter Kelly was still back squatting up to 8 months. Now, the only thing is, I'm a little concerned why I'm starting to sneak into the area of medical advice. Please clear everything with the doctor. Talk about it. Of course, I don't want to say who it was, but our family dealt with a late miscarriage this year, and life is precious, and I wouldn't want it to wake up and find out that you guys had an issue and all think that I gave you bad advice. From what I know, walking is magical. The fresh air will be magical. I would like her to be able to have a few moments with nature every day. If she's at a camp with a bunch of little kids, I was about to say I hope her stress levels are low. But, summer camp has those bizarre stresses, so hopefully there won't be too much of that silliness. I would say probably better would be just, having the backpack on and rucking will be great. Clear it with your doctor. I would like that when you sit down, talk about rucking, the backpack stuff, talk about the loaded carry stuff, but I think you might be in a good situation already. And thanks for letting me know about the Omnibook. It means a lot to me. Much appreciated. Got a question from Justin. This question just came in just in time. Okay, that's my joke. I'm sticking with it. First off, let me say that I know that heavy is relative. Yeah. I was a power lifter late in life, didn't start till 38. And while my numbers weren't breaking any records, I was proud of them. But as I've gotten older, my right knee just doesn't like heavy squats anymore. Okay. My range of motion is better than it ever was, but resting on ankles, that's fabulous, good. And I'm practicing every day, which I agree. I know that range of motion is more important than squatting heavy. And you've said everyone should squat, not everyone should squat heavy. Thank you. But heavy, anything over 200 pounds, makes my right knee give out on the eccentric. And I really miss squatting heavy. Well, you're going to have to, maybe, it's like what Jim Schmitz, the great American Olympic lifting coach, told me. Olympic lifting is a master, is a farewell tour. You lift a weight, you stand up, you get 3 white lights, then you wave your hand like this and you say farewell, because you'll never see that weight again. Squat snatch, squats clean, overhead squat are all no-go now above certain weights. While I can practice them of skills, I'll never be able to go heavy. So would you recommend moving to tons of high rep squat? I can bang out a set of 25 at 185 with no problem. I can push heavy sleds, but it just doesn't scratch the same itch. Okay, see, this is a time where, this is why I like goblet squats and that drill called the goblet squat into the overhead squat. They're light lifts. Again, if you do If you do 24K for 8 reps on the goblet squat to overhead stick drill, that's a tough workout. This issue you're having about wanting to go heavy, listen, you have a problem. I mean, you're gonna have to find joy in something else in your strength workouts. I don't know how to say this. You have to get a mirror and have a long conversation with yourself about your issue. Your knee doesn't want you to squat anymore, so I would spend some time, money, energy. I would talk to a physio or a physical trainer, depending on where you live. I would go see a knee doctor, a specialist of some kind, because if out of nowhere suddenly you can't squat, it'd be nice to know if it's an issue. It could be something really simple. I'm surprised here at the school sometimes. My students here at St. Mary's will tell me stories about how someone had like a nagging knee injury, and then they, many of my students are physios becoming strength and conditioning coaches, and then they'll tell me about some little thing they did, which really, it can be a lower back thing, it can be a glute thing, it can be a foot thing. Those are the 3s that come to mind. Or sometimes just good hands can help you with this. So I'd like you to do 2 things. One, I would like you to get a qualified person to look at the injury and see if they can help you. Secondly, after that, I'd like you to fall in love with the goblet squat to overhead squat drill and make that, see if you can make that exercise even better. See what you can do with overhead squats, and maybe make some kind of goal with overhead squats that's reasonable and doable that makes you keep going. Okay? Thank you. Marcus has a question that I think all of us have to deal with sometime in our life. Thanks for a fantastic podcast. You're welcome. And for all the great life advice. I'm a new dad. Congratulations to you. This is great. With a 5-month-old boy. Very happy, but being 46 years old. So when you're a year older than me, you can have your first beer with him. With my first kid, giving my body a bit of a challenge. It's always tough to find time to train, but one of the challenges is that I tend to end up carrying him for hours on the chest in a baby Bjorn, either standing or walking and even hiking. Well, that's a good load to carry. That means that I carry roughly 8 kilos for now. The nice thing about doing this, children are a progressive resistance exercise. They keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it actually takes a lot of toll on my body. As he will only get heavier, do you have any thoughts how I can prepare myself for his future weight? Obviously, like Milo and the calf, I will get stronger as he gets heavier, but I'm afraid of getting hurt, so I cannot carry him at all. But I like what you said there. If possible, and this is just, if you have, I know they've got those, the happy baby, you're walking around the happy baby thing. I would also suggest getting a backpack to hold the baby too. Yeah, I like what you said here with Milo and the progressive resistance exercise, but I wouldn't mind seeing you carry him sometimes this way and carrying him sometimes this way, because loads here might make you feel better and probably makes a nice picture and, I don't know, makes people happy. But carrying him here is going to allow you to pop up this way and help. So you're part of the problem with those baby Bjorns, and I've only used them a few times, is that a lot of people find that with that extra load, you're pulling yourself back up. And that is great, and it's great for you, but it sure beats down on you. Putting on a baby on the backpack is going to pull him vertical, and of course, a lot of people don't like that because of other problems. Not going to worry about. But I would just say, first off, alternate. So you're doing progressive resistance, but you're not alternating exercises. Exercises you could do. I'd love to see you do, at your age, the half kneeling press, the hang, goblet squat. Let's not worry about carries for a while. Okay, let's give you a program. I want you to do the half kneeling press, the hang, and goblet squat whenever you can appropriately. Let's just toss those 3 exercises in for a while. And I'm going to tell you one other thing. really enjoy when they're little. You're going to have some issues coming up once they start getting mobile and start doing wind sprints, always in the opposite direction of where you want to go. When they start reaching and grabbing and pulling things down. And then, of course, then they learn how to drive, and the next thing you know, you have a grandson, a granddaughter. That's what I've noticed in my life. Enjoy it. Have a wonderful time. Be a great role model. Keep exercising, eat your vegetables, eat your protein, drink your water, keep exercising. Don't just collapse in the TV and watch television every night. Read a damn book, and this is wonderful. I really appreciate it. I hope that helped. When I say the half kneeling press, the hang, and the goblet squat, those are 3 exercises that'll not only do some strength work for you, but help with general mobility and general flexibility. And then carrying the baby around a lot, it'll take care of everything else. Wow, great question. And a whole great set of questions. Next time I do my podcast, I'll be back in my office. If you have questions, remember, email them to us at podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I'll do my best to answer each and every one. And until next time, keep on lifting and learning. Thank you.